It is time for another finance breakdown video. We released one of these in early 2019 for the 2018 fiscal year and revealed quite a bit about where we make our money. And in this video, I'm also going to add a bit about how we spend some of that money. And if you haven't seen the earlier one from last year, you can check that out clicking this card up here first. Anyway, now that corporate and personal taxes are out of the way, it's time to review the 2019 fiscal year and 2020. I think you're going to find some of this to be fairly interesting, which is why I'm making the video. Let's get started. By this point, you've probably seen our original ad for Thermal Grizzly's Carbonate Pads. They're clean, peace-of-mind replacements for traditional thermal paste, and best of all, you'll never have to replace them. But did you also know that you can buy carbonate pads in different sizes for various processors? 32 by 32 millimeter for Intel desktop CPUs, 38 by 38 for Intel HDT and Ryzen, 25 by 25 for the RTX 2080 GPU, and so on. They even make a giant 51 by 68 millimeter pad for Threadripper. I highly recommend carbonate pads, and you can learn more by clicking the link below. Let's kick things off the same way we did last year with a good old pie chart breaking down all formal sources of revenue, starting with the largest chunk and working our way down. Now, I want to stress that this chart doesn't cover all personal income for 2019. There's a chunk for some stocks, other investments that I've made that I won't include because it really has nothing to do with the business, with running this channel. Now, if you recall from last year's video, I made an effort to diversify income outside of just Google AdSense, which is represented by the red pie slice. The AdSense covers strictly baked-in ads that YouTube places directly. We're talking banners, non-skippables, pre- and post-rolls, maybe even mid-rolls if those have been manually enabled in some videos. But what's shown and when it is shown is entirely outside of my control, unless, again, I go in and manually plant mid-rolls, which I don't do very much of. And compared to last year, this now makes up a much smaller chunk of the pie overall, which was my goal, actually, last year. And the 61% that you see up here, that's not Google AdSense. That has nothing to do with Google AdSense at all. That's actually from external brand deals, maybe relating to either YouTube or Twitch or Facebook or some other social media platform, but it's not coming from Google directly. This includes pre-rolls that we make for companies and place into our videos, videos that we make outright for clients that never, show up on our channel. Like those videos go to them; they own the rights to those. Trade show sponsorships, product placements, and a few other things. By breaking things up this way, there's less stress to push out multiple videos per week, since I'm not relying as much on Google AdSense as I used to. I find more time to be creative when filming and editing, and I don't feel rushed like I used to either. 10% of total company revenue last year came from Amazon, surprisingly. I know plenty of channels that earn actually more from Amazon than they do from AdSense, which is weird. I never really understood that, but I'm happy with this ratio here. Now, the remaining 2% is split up between Patreon, which we phased out in the same year, hence the super low number. We don't promote that anymore. Floatplane, which we were invited to join in 2019. Newegg, which is also something that I've been pushing more in 2019. They changed from CJ to Rakuten now, so it's been kind of a hassle, but I'm hoping to pump up Newegg more this year. And then eBay, which again, is a fresh start. So these categories, apart from, again, Patreon, are the things that I would like to see grow for the 2020 fiscal year. I feel that it's important to diversify this income as much as possible to hedge against any unforeseen drought in the market, especially if YouTube decides to shaft me and demonetize everything. Who knows? It wouldn't be as big of a blow as it used to if I suddenly wasn't earning any money from AdSense. That's what I wanted. Next up, I want to move to AdSense revenue broken down by video. These were the top 24 performers in 2019. These don't have to be 2019 uploads, but these are the top 24 earners in 2019. Starting first with the I'm officially being sued video, which accounted for just over 5% of the year's total AdSense earnings. And to break this down even further, it's 5% of 27%, which makes up a little over 1% of total company earnings for the year. Now, without saying real numbers, there's really no way to gauge how pivotal this is, but what I can say is that most videos in 2019 earned less than $50 each. So it's nothing too crazy. Ironically, the video that ultimately led to the frivolous lawsuit covered by the top video was the second best performer for the year, followed closely by our hype drop video, the first one that we did, another PC ad video, our Best Buy PC video, and our SSD video. But there's another metric we use to denote the value of a video, not just how much one earns as a whole, but how much one earns per 1,000 views. Think of this as a measure of how expensive your video is. And that's what this next graph tells us. Now, these are the same 24 videos, so the top performers in 2019, but arranged in order CPM performance and percent above or below that mean. So what this means is that if the 24 video CPM average was, say, $5 per 1,000 views, then this top video, a serious outlier, had a CPM 745% higher than that. So that would be, in the case of a $5 CPM average, $37.25, which is super high. And without revealing what my actual CPM average was, these percentages are rather meaningless, save what they reveal about certain video topics. And that's something that I think is going to be somewhat insightful for a lot of the younger YouTubers out there. This top performer, for instance, absolutely slayed other videos on this list from a CPM perspective. And it just so happens that this video was about my education and my engineering degree. Like, what the heck? It's a video that didn't even perform that well. But educational content tied specifically to colleges and universities does tend to perform well from a CPM standpoint. So that's pretty good. I just had no idea that it would be this good. I mean, Jesus, this is a serious outlier. I may revisit this topic in a future video, by the way, just to see if we can replicate it. That would be, well, mind blown. There's always big advertising money in university budgets, so I really shouldn't be super surprised here, but I do wonder if we can manipulate that again. Either way, excluding that one outlier, another interesting trend here is that my new top performing videos had consistently higher CPMs than the CPM average for 2019 on my channel, with the exception of the bottom 7. The bottom 3 videos in this chart actually had pretty awful CPMs by comparison, including the SSD video, which, if you recall, was the 6th highest grossing earner for the year. So CPM, that performance metric, doesn't always determine how successful or how viewed a video is on your channel. And this is why I love crunching numbers like this. It's just data diving, for like lack of a better word. Most people could care less about this kind of stuff, but it's important to pick up on patterns like these. Maybe which video topics have higher CPMs, which topics have higher retentions, etc. Now, the last chart I like to show you is an expense chart. This is a new one, which breaks down where the company spent a bulk of its money in 2019. Now, it's not going to get super in depth. I'm not going to, split up expenses by like sector or category. I'm not going to do that. But we are an S Corp, so I act as both the owner, who has 100% equity in the company, and also a full-time employee of said company. So I can legally pay myself a reasonable salary and receive W-2s, and that's what this large wages slice represents. The IRS only requires that this amount be, quote, reasonable. There has to be a reasonable salary. Otherwise, if I paid myself considerably less than that, I could be deemed as cheating my taxes, and then I'd be paying significantly less via dividends than via payroll, which is a big no-no. Don't do that. The second largest chunk here is taxes, and this accounts for both federal and state levels. Florida has the reemployment tax, which takes 5% of corporate earnings, thereabouts, and the federal tax rate is usually somewhere around 20% less deductions. Speaking of those, you can see that about 10% of total expenses consisted of office supplies, so things like computer parts, camera gear, lighting, office space, anything that you use strictly for business can be written off to some extent. For 2019, though, I decided to not write off my office space, which would amount to at least a few hundred square feet. I do work out of my house, but you can legally write off space that is used strictly for business. So this is my office. I only do office stuff here. In fact, if I'm playing video games, it's usually in a different room, so it's not even like I use it to play games either. But anyway, I like to leave stuff like that off, just, things that would save me a few $100 here or there on my taxes, because if I'm ever audited, then they would only end up owing me money back, assuming I didn't miss anything super obvious. So be a nice gotcha moment for the IRS. A quick side note though, office supplies also include software and fees associated with wire transactions. So our accounting software for business is 100% deductible, for example. Same goes for Adobe Creative Cloud subscriptions. Basically anything, again, that is used purely for work that we otherwise couldn't do without. As for fees, anytime we receive an international wire transfer, our bank charges us something like $16, which I think is a freaking ripoff, but what can I do? And if we receive dozens of those per year, that amounts to hundreds of dollars. And lastly, travel accounted for roughly 6% of total corporate expenses for 2019. This consists of airline tickets. I only fly coach. I don't buy First class tickets, not that I could even afford an international first class ticket. Anyway, would be nice, but nope. Car rentals, we did rent a few cars. Hotel stays, obviously. Any other transportation fees associated with business travel, let's say. Computex, for example, is a big one for us. That was a big one in 2019. And for the most part, that can be deducted. CES is also a big one, though travel expenses are typically a bit lower because we already live in the US, so plane tickets aren't as beefy. But anyways, I hope this has shed some light onto how we run our business and some of the things associated with running a media company that uses, or that has, I should say, a YouTube presence and has a few other presences on social media platforms. It's a super weird field, if you want to call it that, but it's also very fun. I love being in charge of my own business finances. I love seeing numbers flow in and out, flow from column A to column B. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm not an accountant. I don't know. I just happen to be sitting here talking to you guys about the young entrepreneurial spirit that I have, I guess. Never thought I would. If you had told me I was going to do this in high school, I would have laughed hysterically in your face like the annoying high school kid I was. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed this video, click that thumbs up button, consider subscribing, and I will catch you in the next one. My name is Greg. Thanks for learning with me.